The aesthetic choices for the piece really came from patterns that I'd worked with before, and I still have scraps of the patchworks around in my studio. And so what I did was create basically a storyboard or an image board where I would collage different patterns next to each other and see which ones really worked well together, which ones contrasted properly, even some that had some dissonance, because of course the name of the piece itself is Madrigal, which represents a type of music, a musical form, a song form, which has voices that are coming in and out at different rhythms and sometimes different keys and cadences, and then sang together. So from different aspects becomes a whole composition of music, and from different aesthetics and patterns of patchwork quilts became this whole unit that you see now. And as you walk around, you notice that the point of view seems to change, and the piece seems like it's always morphing and transforming, because from every specific angle, you're getting a different combination of colors and patterns. So it almost reinvents itself. I call it a hyper object. So it's not really fixed, even though it is static physically. It seems metaphorically and metaphysically to move around and change. I have been working on the Codex series, which are paintings that are done on antique quilts that have since morphed into sculptures made from antique quilts. And in that trajectory, I came up with the idea of doing a very large-scale piece that was influenced by that, which ended up being Madrigal. And Madrigal is made out of steel and corian as the colorful material that you see on the surface. And we were able to find ways to mill it and mosaic it together to create the piece that you see outside. My interest in quilts, beyond some of the historical and more charged readings in them, is really sort of about the aesthetics. And what I've always found interesting is that the more I stare at them, the more three-dimensional they would become. I would get trapped in the patterns and the geometry and start to extrude and push perspective lines in my mind. So one day I decided that I really wanted to see what that would look like physically, and I started to create armatures to then clad with quilt pieces. And as I started to develop that as a strategy, and this opportunity came about to do the commission with MIT, it was a perfect situation and scenario where we could really scale up and try something ambitious and large, which became the Madrigal piece. Honestly, all the elements that came together for this commission seemed to be in, no pun intended, but perfect harmony. I am also a musician and have a very deep interest in music and art and combining them together. And the fact that this building is for music and theater culture was a perfect opportunity. And even a step further, working with SANAA, the architects, was a great coincidence, because I lived in Japan for 3 years and I was very familiar with their work. And I have been very influenced by Japanese aesthetics in general. So having an opportunity to collaborate and work with a team from Japan was also very exciting and seemed very close to home. Looking at this as a collaboration with both MIT and SANAA and the whole team to develop the building, I was there in a very early stage. So I was able to see brick samples and colorways and things that were going to be used in the literal structure here, and take those into consideration when developing Madrigal. And we used a material that is often not used in art at all, corian, which is basically a countertop material, but it comes in an array of patterns and colors. And we found in our experimentation that we could actually mill the material, and it gave it more of an effect of having, texture and feeling closer to textile than just merely an acrylic sheet. So when you get up close, you'll start to see grooves and lines and dips and crevices, almost like stitching involved with the piece. So that is a way to sort of bring it more outside of the industrial and into the domestic, and feel a little bit more tangible for the viewer. And of course, that brings it closer to the idea of actual quilting and patchwork. When creating Madrigal, I wanted to also contextualize where this artwork was going, and that it was trying to achieve many different things. And this is the kind of campus that might literally appreciate the engineering, the design, the construction, the musical references, the poetry, if you will. Because what we're in fact trying to do is take a three-dimensional object and evoke sound. and not just any kind of sound. A madrigal is not just about harmonies, it's about, the dissonance as well. So how can you make an artwork that can, let's say, occupy that space between melody, harmony, rhythm, dissonance, and so on, but just do it through aesthetic means. So something that I would like viewers to try when they see the piece is maybe to hear the music, or if they close their eyes, how would that represent, in their memory? And of course, it's a gateway to come and enjoy all the things that are inside the building itself, which of course will span the ranges of creativity and artistic expression.